I've got this massive solar array, and it's feeding power through this cord straight into just a standard wall outlet. We've got almost 940 watts of power being generated right now off those panels. This is probably the cheapest, most DIY-friendly, somewhat large solar project that you could possibly do. This offsets an incredible amount of power and gives you a return on investment in literally no time at all. So what I've got here is 4 370-watt bifacial solar panels. And the secret sauce to making this all happen is this awesome, look at this, multi-port, 120-volt micro-inverter from EcoFlow. This is the EcoFlow Stream micro-inverter. I purchased this with my own money. EcoFlow did not send this out to me, and they are not a sponsor of the channel. They should be, though. But that's taking power from all 4 of these panels, which is totally epic because you only need one inverter for 4 large solar panels. And it's literally coming in and just plugging into a standard outlet. This video is going to be geared towards Utah homeowners, but I think it will be valuable to a lot of the rest of you, so you can see how this works, and hopefully you guys can convince your states to allow something like this. This is truly the best way to combat the insane rising prices of energy. Let's unbox this Stream microinverter. And here's the microinverter itself. Really big. I mean, that's my hand next to it. Very nice build quality. All metal here. I'm sure that's for heat dissipation. We've got our 4 MC4 inputs for the solar panels down here at the bottom. Got this unique looking adapter that is our AC out. Looks like a Wi-Fi antenna right there. And then take note here, we've got a number 1 port here, and then these 2 ports are in parallel. Okay, so there's one MPPT that controls 2 and 3. 1 has its own MPPT, 2 and 3 share one, and then 4 has its own. So bear that in mind as you're hooking up solar panels. You need to have a matching pair on 2 and 3. Otherwise, if you have a smaller size one on 2 than you have on 3, 2 is going to drag 3 down to its level. In terms of its specs, super fast. Max voltage input, 60 volts. The MPPT range is 16 to 60 volts. You need a minimum of 20 volts to start it. Your max input current is going to be 14 amps. Your max short circuit current is 20 amps. It outputs 120 volts at 60 hertz, 1200 watts. That's 10 amps. Very, very cool. Take a look in this box here. Got some documentation here. Got some mounting hardware and a nice long heavy-duty AC power cord. Got the standard 120 volt plug on this end, and then their proprietary connector on this end here. Okay, so I've got 4 solar panels here. You can see that I've just connected every solar panel to one of the inputs, which makes sure that each connection comes from the same solar panel. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Can you see how that red light is blinking right here? So that means it's receiving power from the panels, but has yet to detect the grid. And that's because we don't have the grid connected. So let's take the AC wire here, plug it up. It's a 20 amp outlet on a dedicated circuit. So this should be more than enough to handle this solar input. On the end of this additional heavy duty 10 gauge extension cord, I've got this watt meter, and this is going to measure the amount of power we're able to pull off of those solar panels. Go ahead and plug the solar inverter in, and you'll notice there at first actually the microinverter draws just under a watt. It actually pulls power from the grid for a minute, and that allows it to synchronize itself to the grid. Okay, so next you need to simply add the microinverter to your EcoFlow app. It's very self-explanatory and walks you through very easily how to do that. And then you're able to come in here and see information about it, how much power each solar panel is producing, and then how much power it's pushing out. It hasn't had time to boot up yet, so we have no data here. If we come up here to the settings, you'll see you can change its name. You can update the firmware. We can get the specifications of it, which is very, very handy. Most importantly, your input voltage could be very handy to reference that. And then, of course, you can get some help. But let me show you something. In these settings, there's no way to change its output power. That's because we got to come back here. We'll go back another page to this main screen here, and then there's a new settings icon right up here. So we'll tap on that, and now this top option here, grid tied output power limit. Let's go ahead to do that. So the default grid-tied power output is 360 watts. And I'm going to talk about the reason why that is, and why, unlike a standard 15 amp breaker, you're limited to the 360 watts. and why you'd have to go all the way up to a 50 amp breaker to get the 1200 watts if you're running loads off the same circuit as this little thing shows. Let me explain a little bit better why. So let's just talk about shared circuits versus dedicated circuits. This is an example of a shared circuit where we have a 15 amp breaker with 14 gauge wire. That's a very common size circuit here in the United States. That means this circuit has a maximum of 1,800 watts that it can handle. And that's what the breaker is rated for before it will trip. And the reason we have breakers is so that the wires do not heat up and cause a fire. The breaker will shut off and prevent any more electricity from flowing in the wires, therefore allowing them to cool off and not continue to heat up and potentially cause a fire. So here's the problem. The microinverter can produce up to 1,200 watts. For easy math, let's just say that it's going to produce 1,000 watts for this scenario. So 1,000 watts is coming into this outlet right here, and electricity is just like water. It will flow in the path of least resistance. And so from this side here, we've got the grid power pushing ever so slightly. Let's say this load is 2,500 watts, and you don't realize that it takes that much power. Well, what's going to happen is the power from the stream microinverter is going to come in, and because this is the same circuit, it's going to come and feed this. So we've got 1,000 watts coming from the stream. It's not going to be able to power the full 2,500 watts. So from the grid right here, it will make up the difference and provide 1,500. But now something interesting happens. On this little wire right here, between where the microinverter power comes in and where the power to the heavy load is going, those wires right there are going to be carrying 2,500 watts. That is substantially more than the 1,800 watts that the wire is rated for, as well as the breaker. But guess what? The breaker is not going to trip because it is only seeing 1,500 watts going through it. And it has no idea that there's an additional 1,000 watts getting fed in midway during the circuit. And so now all of a sudden, this wire is going to melt, get hot, start a fire, something. And that's why it is very dangerous to overload a shared circuit, which is why there are limits to the microinverter for what amount of power you can dump in to a shared circuit. So now we've got dedicated circuits. We have our breaker panel right here, and each of these breakers are tying into the bus bar inside that breaker panel that can handle significant quantities of electricity. So we still have a 15 amp breaker, we still have a 14 gauge wire at both of these breakers. Once again, they're rated for 1,800 watts and 1,800 watts. Let's say our microinverter is producing 1,000 watts again. That power is simply going to come in through these wires and down into the breaker panel bus bar. There is no other outlets or anything along this pathway. It's a dedicated circuit. And 1,000 watts is plenty under the 1,800 watt rated limit of 14 gauge wire. And then what happens, let's say you plug in your 2,500 watt load right here, and it turns on. Well, because now there's no additional power getting fed in along the middle of the wiring here, the breaker can now see that this 2,500 watts is more than it's rated for, and the breaker will trip and cut the power to that load, thus protecting this wiring. And so you completely eliminate the risk of any kind of hot wires or melting or fire or anything, because now the circuit breaker can do its job that it was designed to do. Hopefully that was in depth enough to grasp the concept, but not so deep that it was over your heads. Okay, continuing, if we swipe here, you also have the option of derating the breaker. So very similar to what we discussed before, because we derate the breaker, that breaker will not allow as much power to be drawn from the grid before it trips. And again, that's going to protect your wires. But even still, in order to get the full output, you're going to need, like a 30 amp circuit still, which not very many of us have already. And so then method 3 would be a dedicated circuit. So you're going to backfeed through a breaker, and then all the other loads will be behind their own individual breakers. So that way nothing else is on the wires. So for compliance, as well as for just general fire safety, do not plug this into a circuit that you're going to run additional things off of. I would highly recommend just getting a dedicated circuit created. It's not that hard. and then you have nothing to worry about and you can maximize your investment. Now you need to select your region. So I'm in the state of Utah. So then right here we have our options to type in our circuit breaker rating for the outlet we're plugged into, and then it will automatically limit the output power from the stream. If you select other regions, you're going to be locked in at 360 watts. You can see that right here. Let's actually stay with this for a minute. 360 watts. We've got to agree to the grid tie agreement down here. I'm very familiar with this, but you should definitely read this and understand everything. Okay, so go ahead and say I've read and agree, and then we'll go ahead and hit the check mark right here. Okay, if we come back out here now to the microinverter, the light is now flashing green. So that means it's producing power. And if we come back into the app here, you'll see that it is indeed limiting itself to 360 watts. If you're only going to use 360 watts, then you should probably shrink the size of your solar array. This solar array is obviously way too big for only producing 360 watts. Each one of those panels is 370 watts. So you could probably max this out for the majority of the day with just 2 panels and probably still be leaving some power on the table. If we come here to our watt meter, it's actually recording about 370-ish watts going into the grid. So about a 10-ish watt discrepancy, but that's not too much. The good news is I've got a dedicated circuit, so we're going to come back here to the settings. We're going to tap on these little blue arrows, and I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to a dedicated circuit. And now you can see we're going to get the maximum output of 1200 watts. We've got to agree to the agreement again, and then we'll hit the little check mark. And we've got to go ahead and confirm that all the settings are correct. Now it's still morning time. You can see my shadow is kind of long, and these panels are aimed to pick up a little bit more of the noon sun. So we're not at max production yet, but if we take a look at the app, we can already see we're producing just under 800 watts, 760-ish watts right now. We can also see that it is combining PV1 and 3 together, because we can see that generally PV1 and 4 are producing about 200-ish watts, but 3 is substantially more, 370. So that's a little bit unique, but I guess it works. And you can see right here on the watt meter that we're pushing in 760 watts as well. So this time it's considerably closer to accurate. FYI, you guys, this inverter gets really, really hot. I can hardly leave my hand on there. So definitely follow the instructions of putting it in the shade to maximize the amount of cool air it is exposed to, as well as be sure and don't sit on grass or anything, because it will burn it very quickly. I'm going to use its box to shade it just a little bit here. Notice that up here in the handle it does have the little mounting notches, and as a reminder, it comes with the hardware, so you'll probably want to mount it up underneath your solar panels so it can get some shade. However, that is even hot. Probably better than it sitting in the sun, but maybe away from the hot solar panel while somewhere still in the shade would be ideal. I made this super slick for any of you in Utah to easily and for very cheaply accomplish a setup like this. I got links to all of the stuff you'll need nicely organized in the description down below. So obviously, first and foremost, you need the EcoFlow Stream Micro-Inverter. Next, you're going to need some solar panels. I've partnered up with Payoff Solar, a local Utah company here that sells solar panels for incredibly cheap prices. They buy them by the pallet and then allow you to come and pick them up, so you don't have to pay shipping on insanely expensive items to ship, like large, heavy solar panels. It varies what kind of stock they have, because what they do is get the cheapest pallets of solar panels they can find at any given time, ship them in, sell them out, and then repeat the process. So you might not get exactly the solar panels that I have. Last I checked, they actually have better ones. These are 370 watt bifacials, and last I saw there were 405 watt ones available. Anyway, I'll link down in the description to their website so you can check them out. You can order a quantity of 1, you can order a quantity of 1,000, and everything in between, and you just drive over, pick them up for free, and take them to your place. So very, very convenient and very, very inexpensive. We're talking like sub $100 or thereabouts for brand new giant panels like this. That's literally like a quarter of the price of ordering panels online and having them shipped to you. Do not pass go, do not collect 200 if you live in the state of Utah. Just go straight to Payoff Solar and get the best deals out there. And like I said, I partnered with them, and I've got a discount code down in the description, so you can even save more money on your purchase. if you decide to place a order over the phone with them, because they're extremely helpful. If you need help figuring out exactly what you need, just be sure and mention that you came from There's a Trick for That so that you get your discount. After the solar panels, you need something to hold them. Certainly, you can just throw them out in your yard and lay them down on the ground. That's an option. But that can look a little tacky, and you don't get as much performance out of your panels without being able to angle them. So my favorite solution for this is, you can see a little piece of it right here coming out the front, and then back here on the back, you can see the back stands. They telescope up and down. There's also a pivot point right here, so it's very, very easy to dial in the perfect angle for your solar panels, and I'll have links to them down in the description. In addition to the legs and the mounting hardware and brackets and whatnot, you'll also get a box of strapping units. So you get some straps, and you'll get some anchor points that attach to the solar panels, and then also include these really nice ground screws. And so you're actually able to anchor these down really good and prevent them from blowing away or having any problems with wind. The thing I love about these stands is you can deploy them anywhere, literally. They're super fast and super easy to deploy. You can adjust them very easily as the seasons change and the sun gets lower in the horizon. You can increase your angle very, very easily to maximize your solar over the year. The majority of us who live here in Utah get snow, and so these front stands help allow space for the snow to slough off the panels without covering a bunch of them. But they are not a permanent structure, right? So you don't need permits or anything for them. And then if you move or something, it's super easy to just unstake them, clean things up, and take the solar panels with you. No need to leave your investment behind. So anyway, highly, highly recommend these stands. I'll leave a link to my full video review on them and show you how they hook up to the panels and everything. I don't have the anchoring system deployed yet because I keep using this solar array for different tests and experiments on the channel. And then last but not least, you will need some MC4 PV wire extension cables, because the microinverter, it just has the ports built into it, and you've got to get your power from your panels somehow to the inverter. And the cables that are built onto the solar panels, you can see it starts here and literally goes into the panel, so they are not long enough to connect to the microinverter. So I'll leave links down in the description to some really nice heavy-duty MC4 PV wire extension cables. And then there's one more piece to the puzzle here, and that is your power meter. Because technically the solar is a grid tie solar device, there is a high likelihood that at some point you are going to be producing more power than the house consumes. If you don't have a smart meter that can differentiate the direction of flow of power, there's a chance you could get actually billed for power you generated in excess and pushed back to the grid. Now, I already have a larger grid-tied solar system right here, so I already have a compliant meter. But if you want to go ahead and do the plug-and-play type solar, like I've got out there with the EcoFlow Stream, simply contact Rocky Mountain Power, who's the one that services the majority of us here. Let them know you're taking advantage of the House Bill 340, and they won't force a permit or anything, because the law doesn't require permitting. You just need a compliant device, which the EcoFlow Stream is, and Rocky Mountain Power will come out and swap your meter head for free to one that will be able to differentiate between the flow of electricity. Even though it's the same meter as someone like myself who has net metering agreements, you will not bank any credits or anything for power that you sell back to the grid without going through that whole permitting and approval process, which you're welcome to if you would desire. But it's a hassle and a headache, and for such a small amount of solar generation, I think it's just good to get the meter swapped out. That way you don't get charged extra for the power you feed back to the grid, if any, and you're good to go. Let's just look at our power production. You can see that we are over the 900 watt mark, and we're still not close to peak. You can see it's still just shy of 11 in the morning. So I should easily be able to get 1,000 or more watts out of this array. I would personally recommend, if Payoff Solar has higher wattage panels than the 370 watt ones, to get those. Solar panels never produce exactly what they're rated for, because that's under lab testing conditions. So over paneling, especially with how cheap solar panels are, is a good way to go. So 400 watt plus panels, I think would be ideal. Go ahead and get 4 of them and you should be set. Today is a very hot day. It's in the 90s. And like I said, this inverter is cooking. It is hot, hot, hot. I can hardly touch it. But it does not seem to have any kind of thermal throttling issues like other 120 volt inverters I've tested. So this is by far the best and most stable that I've tested thus far. And it's super deluxe that you get app monitoring thrown into the mix as well. All right, let me know what questions you have down in the comments. Any thoughts, ideas? I love to hear it. I think this is something every homeowner should be taking advantage of here in the state of Utah. There's no reason to not hook up 1,200 watts worth of solar and offset that power. I think you'd be shocked how much power that actually saves you. The pricing is in tiers, right? So, you know, the first small chunk of power that you use every month is billed very cheaply, and then the next one's more expensive, the next one's more expensive. So even if it can keep you out of one of those higher tiers, a small investment with the inverter and these solar panels and the stands, maybe a little bit of cabling, you're probably looking at a return on investment in 2 years max. I mean, this will pay for itself really, really fast. Yeah, definitely take advantage, guys. It's a no-brainer. Like, comment, share, subscribe for 100% free things for you to do, but it really benefits the channel. And I think bringing this kind of content to you is very valuable because now you know how to substantially offset your electric bill 365 days a year. That's got to have some value to do those 4 things, right? All right, sure appreciate you guys, and we'll catch y'all next time.